I was so happy doing that I promise you I'd wake up in the morning and get dressed and I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, it's good to be Sam Rouser. They pay me to do this, because I really enjoyed the work of driving students all over, taking students wherever they're interested in going to school. It was just a joy.
Today in the studio, we have Sam Rouser. Sam is the executive director at OnPoint for College and has spent over 40 years mentoring first-generation students, helping them earn their degrees, gain employment, and much more. Sam has earned honors like the Syracuse Inner City Unsung Hero Award, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Award for Outstanding Community Service, and the NAACP Community Service Award. Sam, super excited to have you on the show today.
My pleasure to be here.
So first of all, you probably have the best voice in Syracuse.
Uh-oh.
So I'm very excited for their listeners for this one.
Thank you.
And then secondly, there's going to be a lot that we're going to talk about, but I feel like a good place to talk to start would be OnPoint. And what is OnPoint for those who maybe are unaware?
Okay, that is a good place to start. I always like starting at the beginning, which is keeping things on point. So that's the first time, right?
One. There's going to be a little ding counter maybe in the corner.
So OnPoint for College is a college access program. And when we started, Jenny and I, when I joined the team, didn't know we were a college access program. We were just helping young people, pursue post-secondary opportunities. But it's a 3-pillar approach to helping students to pursue those post-secondary opportunities. The first pillar is access. So it's helping a student get into college or getting to a skilled trade program or finding that opportunity at an employment agency where they can filter in, helping them with the paperwork, helping them understand the letters they're going to get back, taking them on college visits, taking them on tour visits, doing those things to make sure a student is introduced and gets in successfully to that college or that skilled trade program. Our second pillar is success. It's great that you help them get in, and many programs that are college access programs will do that, but can you help them to be successful? What happens if a student doesn't have a ride to get to school? What happens if they don't have the steel-toe boots they need to work for the skilled trade agency? What happens if they don't have these things and they don't have the money for it? OnPoint steps in to support that, to make sure those students are successful in their journey. And then our third pillar is career services. You got them in, you kept them in, can you help them find employment upon completion? So doing things like cover letters, helping them with their resume, and helping them most importantly with internships. Internship opportunities are really, really an important part of our career service program. It helps students gain those valuable skills they're going to need so when they go to apply for a job, it's not their first time walking in the door. They have some experience behind them. So that 3-pillar approach to helping young people 17 and up pursue their post-secondary opportunities is what OnPoint is all about.
This is always my funny question. Why? Why is that important?
Yeah. So, many young people haven't been exposed to the opportunities that are out there. And they don't know about these opportunities. And I remember I worked at Onondaga Community College. They had a program where we wanted to offer classes to students from the inner city. So we thought we'd go down to Central Tech and we'd offer classes in the evening. And so I was tasked with the job of going out in the community and informing people of this opportunity and helping them to get into OCC downtown in the evening. We ran this program for about 3 years. And the thing that we found out was students, once I came into the community and helped them do the paperwork, helped them do the financial aid, they weren't going to school downtown. They were going up on the hill, and we were like, well, I thought they didn't want to. It wasn't that they couldn't get to OCC. The issue was that they couldn't do the paperwork. They didn't know how to do the FAFSA, which a lot of people don't know how to do. And so figuring out that part was the issue helped us to grow the number of students from the underrepresented populations at OCC, and that was African American, Hispanic, and Native American students started flourishing up at OCC back in the mid-'80s, early '90s, once we implemented that program. So working with Jenny fast forward and doing this work, now we're able to help students go anywhere they want. We had a student that had a GED, and they think, well, I got a GED. Only place I can go is OCC. Well, how'd you do? And this was, years ago. He scored over 3,000 in a GED. You can go to a university with that. And this student actually ended up getting a full ride scholarship after graduating from UB to Cornell University. So it's helping people to understand that you have more in front of you than you realize. You just need some help getting there.
Why is it important to follow up with them and keep with them after college?
Again, exposure. Students are not exposed to many of the opportunities. If you don't have an uncle, aunt, a cousin, a relative that is in a particular field, then sometimes it's tough. If you know someone, then you have more opportunity. Many of our students don't have that kind of exposure. And sometimes, when they first get out, they may fall off for a second. It may take a little while to get there. And we want to let them know that someone supports you always. And so we have students that, and you may go to college and get your degree in, what we say, general studies. And now what am I going to do with that? What job do I get with that? And they're not sure. So we need to help them, maybe rethink, should you get another degree or should you go into a training program? But it's staying with that student to let them know that you always have someone to support you. If you're lost, if you're not sure, always come back. Once OnPoint, always OnPoint.
How long has OnPoint been around and how many students have been served?
Oh, wow. So that's a great question. This year, we will celebrate April 13th will be our 25th year. So we're having our 25-year celebration, our 25th anniversary. It'll be June 20th at the Marriott. So mark your calendars now to come in and join in celebration with us. We've had over 15,000 students that have signed up and come through our program. We have a little over 5,000 that are graduates. We have another 5,000 that have certifications and certificates. We have about 2,500 that are currently in college or in training programs now. So it's been a phenomenal ride and impact. And I'm embarrassed often, I have to say. My memory isn't as good as I'd like it to be, and I'm out and about in the community, and people are walking and say, "Oh, Mr. Rauser, thank you." And I'm looking like, "You're welcome." Like, who are you? and I'm sorry. I just, we've helped so many people in so many years, and they're really appreciative and grateful, and they're doing great things in this town now.
Yeah, well, that's a good problem. Helping too many people that you can't remember everyone that you helped.
Yeah, good problem to have. Absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the why of why it's important to have people in our community go to college or find trades. Is there a problem in Syracuse, in the area, with people not getting high-skilled jobs or college education? Talk to me a little bit more about that.
Well, in all areas right now, if you want, there are people hiring all over the place, especially in the skilled trades area. If you want a plumber, if you want someone in an HVAC, if you want an electrician. I mean, my wife and I just rehabbed a house, and we're looking for people to come and help. And the people that are coming to do the work are 60 and 70 years old, and it's like, wait, where are the young people at? And so there's a shortage of people to get the work done. And part of that, I'll just share it in my mind. Our education system has been flawed, I would say. And it's been an indoctrination of our youth. We've kind of indoctrinated them into a way of thinking and a way of acting. And it hasn't played out well. Many of our students have dropped out of school, have disassociated themselves with education. They've gotten frustrated with the process, and our numbers are dismal. Our literacy levels are 15% of our kids in third grade are reading on level. That means 85% of our kids are not reading on level. It's not a good thing. And so we have a lot of work to do to help our community. I mean, poverty is, we're in the basement. There was an article just out this week about the affordability of housing. I mean, we're in the basement everywhere. And that's problematic for us as a community. And if we don't help those who are not getting the support, those who don't feel like they're a part of, if we can't bring them into the fold as a community, it's going to be a disaster because you can't continue to have 70 and 80-year-olds trying to work because there's no one under them that's stepping up. So what's important for us I mean, the systemic racism that we face, sometimes we want to run away from that conversation. We don't want to have it. If you don't have it, it doesn't get better. You've got to address those things that are going on in your community across the board in order to make it better and in order to change it. And those are a lot of the reasons why, education is foundational. It's foundational. There a Pew study said that 90% of students who receive a bachelor's degree are moved out of poverty. So we already know that education changes conditions. We want to move people out of poverty. We're pouring money into it, but are we pouring it in the right place? Education is where we have to go. And that may mean we have to do some curriculum switches. We have to look at the curriculums that we have out there. Is that part of the challenge? Is that part of the struggle? And we've got to change some of those things. So it's going to be important. It's a lot of work to do, but we can't keep doing what we've been doing. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you always got. We need to change that.
It's a big question, Sam. How?
Well, it's one step at a time. And the first thing that we've got to do, and I go back to our education system, and it's got to be a community effort. The school district has some things that they need to work on and some things they need to do, but the community has to step in and be a part of it. If you go to the school district and you know that your child's not reading, are you doing anything with that child? And if you know it's a family where maybe the parent can't read, because this didn't just happen. So you have families where the grandparent, the parent, and the child, none of them can read. That's a health issue, because if they go to the doctor and they get medication and they come home, who knows what to take? And so they're not taking the right medication. But you've got to start with the literacy piece. You've got to start with the education piece. That has to be the part that we're addressing first, making sure people are educated and understand what we need to do. We've got to change laws. We've got to change rules. We've got to change the process. That the how is in each person coming accountable for their part in this. Like, what part do you play? I don't need to call you out and say, you aren't doing this. You call you out. So people have to be willing to understand the part that they play in our young people, in our young adults, and even in our adults who are illiterate. What part do we play in getting here? And then once we admit the part that we played, we can start to change that behavior. So one of the things that we've just started thinking about the literacy pieces, we started a little group called Syracuse Reads. And the purpose is to bring in all of the organizations that are working with kids now to help them to read. You're out there working with 5 kids. You're out there working with 10. You're working with 15. Let's come together and see how we scale up the work that you're doing as a group, making sure that we're all on the same pages. And then there's another group, the Reading League. You can work with the school district, and you can work with the colleges, because you've got to change the way that teachers are teaching, because the way that they're teaching hasn't been working, because 15% of our kids are reading on level. So we've got to change that process of how that's happening. And that's going to be, part of that is going to be on the teacher side. So someone's working with them, and then you have the Literacy Coalition, and they're working with adults to try to help them to gain. So everybody has a part to play, and we've all got to step up, because that is the foundation, I believe, of where the change has to come. We've got to educate people, and we can't be afraid that, we can only teach what the curriculum says. We've got to go beyond the curriculum, because the curriculum isn't inclusive enough of all people, and we need to be very inclusive in the education that we're teaching. Many people that I think that are successful, and I'll say people of color in particular who are successful, their parents at home had them reading some other literature, had them reading other books. They didn't just get what they got in school. They got much more than that. My parents didn't just say, okay, you got your schoolwork done, that's good. No, you need to read Richard Wright. You need to read some other books so that you have a full understanding of the Black experience, not what they're just telling you in school.
So I hear you say this, and I growing up as a Syracuse kid, as a Liverpool kid, I have no idea how bad it is or how much of this exists. Luckily, I've had the privilege of filming with some of these nonprofits and seeing the actual problem, but I think a lot of our listeners aren't necessarily even aware. I hear people can't read, or they're reading at a low school grade level. If I rewind probably 10, 15 years, I wouldn't even believe that. How big of a problem is this?
Well, again, if you took numbers and you just looked at, and I know people, they say to me sometimes, well, stop picking schools out, but I can't help it because this is how bad it is. If you're at Dr. King School, 2% of the third graders are reading on level. Okay, so if there's 200 kids in the school, right, 4 out of 200 are reading on level. If you're at Delaware, 1% of the kids are reading on level. So if there are 200 kids, 2 of the kids are reading on level. That's a travesty and a crisis that we should be losing our mind about. How do we help these young people? Because these are the individuals that we're expecting to grow up and do something productive. Now, that's in third grade right now. There's an article I was reading where a professor at a college is saying he has freshmen in his class that cannot read. Wait, they've graduated from high school and they can't read? How is this possible? You know, there's a story of a young man that was working at, I'll just say, one of our local places, and that person was a runner, and they would tell him, we need you to go over to this area and take this information. And he would say, oh, that's on the second floor around the corner. And they said, yeah. And that was always the conversation. He always pointed out the place. And so they figured out that the reason he was doing that is because he couldn't read. And he was a high school graduate. They let him go because it was dangerous for him to be there and not be able to read, to mix stuff up that couldn't get mixed up. And so the problem with literacy, and it's not just a Syracuse problem, it's a national problem, that, you know, I think in New York State in 2019, about 12% of African-American males were reading on level across the state. Wait, what? And no one's talking about this? How, as a society, when we look at the problems that we have, we look at young people that are acting out because they don't want to be embarrassed because they can't read. So I'm not going to let this class, if you pick me to read, I'm going to blow up because I need to get kicked out because I can't let everybody here know that I can't read. You know, I was going to Price right over on South Ave one evening, about 7 o'clock in the evening, and I'm pulling up, and there's a gentleman standing in front of the sliding door, and it's not moving. I'm like, the store's closed? And I'm like, it can't be closed. Like, the lights are on and it looks like it's open. And so I pull over closer to the door, and as I do, he's walking away, and I'm getting out of the car. He says, oh, it's closed. You can't get in. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. It's just a little sign on the door. Let me figure out why it's closed. So I walk up to the sign, and it's an arrow saying, use the exit as your entrance. He couldn't read, so he couldn't go to the store because he couldn't read. And this is like 2-3 months ago. This gentleman was probably 45, 50 years old. So the problem that we have is great in this community, especially with the literacy piece. And again, I think it's you talk about the village, it's an entire community that needs to stand up and say, okay, what can I do to help? Join with us in the Syracuse Reads. Join Book Buddies program. United Way does a Book Buddies program where they need 500 people to go into these schools and read to these young people and have these young people read to them. Participate. You've got to be a part of some of these programs, like the United Way program, like Literacy Coalition, like Syracuse Reads, like the Reading Alliance. You got to be a part of these programs in order to make a difference. Either you're part of the solution or you're part of the problem. I mean, you choose which way you want to go.
To switch gears a little bit here. So you came in as a employee number 2.
Yeah.
And now you are, what's your correct title?
Executive Director.
Executive Director. Talk to me about your journey from employee number 2 to Executive Director.
So journey. I never thought it was a journey. and actually, as I've done this work, I've thought of it, I guess it's been more of a destination that I didn't want to go to. And I say that because when I started working with Jenny, when Jenny hired me on, I had worked at a community college for about a little over 10 years, almost 12 years I had worked there and doing very similar work. So coming into OnPoint, I was already skilled in the programming part of it. I had helped students get into OCC for years. And that was the joy. I mean, I was so happy doing that I promise you, I'd wake up in the morning and get dressed, and I'd look in the mirror and I'd say, it's good to be Sam Rouser. They pay me to do this, because I really enjoyed the work, driving students all over the state, sometimes different places in the country, anything within 5 hours of Syracuse, going to D.C., Connecticut, Vermont, taking students wherever they're interested in going to school was just a joy. And I just enjoyed it so much. And I was learning so much about this process and this work and how we do it. And probably after 6 or 7 years, Jenny was like, we started bringing on more staff. And so I had to move from being an advisor to being like a assistant, program director, and then a program director. And then she's starting to say, you can't play with the kids anymore. Like, wait, what? I need them. But it was that progression because of the knowledge I had and the ability to share it with other individuals so that they could do the same work that we were doing. We had more minds, more people, more ability was why I kind of just gravitated and continued to grow in the organization. It was a little challenging because the thing that I love the most is working with people. And as you become a director, you work less with people, and now you're working with policy, you're working with institutions, you're working with some people, but you're doing a totally different kind of thing now. And so you don't get the joy of that family coming in and you helping them understand that if you check this box and fill out that application, everything's going to be paid for. And they're like, oh my God, we never knew. And the joy and the excitement and to be able to go home and say, I changed that one's life. I did something great today. It's a little bit different. And probably in 2008, Jenny said, okay, Sam, I want to start working with you because I want you to be the next executive director. And I was like, oh, no, that's not going to happen. I'm happy, doing what I'm doing. We'll have to find somebody else to do that. And she was like, and so for probably the next, 4 years later in 2012, we got some funding from New York State to expand our work to Utica and to New York City. And so I was tasked with going down to New York City and training 2 organizations down there while Jenny built the program in Utica. And as we were finishing that program, Jenny's like, okay, I gotta go. I'm going to need you to step into this. And I'm still like, no, not going to do it. And really something personal kind of changed my mind. I'm an SOP. That's son of a preacher. For those who don't know, my father was a pastor, and he came down with Alzheimer, and he had to step down from preaching. And when he stepped down, they had to find, of course, another preacher. And in that process, I wasn't totally bought into, and I was like, I don't like the way this process is going. So I ended up leaving that church and going to another church. And at that moment, I had an epiphany. It's like, yeah, you can go to any church you want to if you don't like who the leadership is. But if you don't like who takes Jenny's place, there's not another OnPoint. So if you don't do it, then, and so at that moment I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. And I told Jenny, yes, I'll do this. And it's been an exciting journey. It's different because a lot of I tell people, depending on which side you're on, my job is to raise, I think our budget's around $4 million now. So it's raised little over $10,000 a day, unless I use the work-life balance thing that they go now, and I take weekends off, and then I got to raise $15,000 a day. So that's kind of my job is to do that part, to make sure that we're that we stay afloat, that we're raising money, and then to make sure that the staff are taken care of. To make sure that staff are able to get their work done, and make sure that we're providing the support that they need to be able to make that work happen, and to be able to trust people, to be surrounded with people that you can trust, and give them the ability to be able to help the organization grow as well. So it's been I don't know if it's been a journey, but it's definitely been a destination to get to this part. And to be able to take, Jenny's baby, because this is Jenny Donahue's baby. The OnPoint for College is her design. She led the organization for 17 years of our 25 years. And she built such a solid foundation that, I've just been working hard not to mess it up. And keep it going. But one of the things that I think about in the 17 years that Jenny was in the leadership, we were OnPoint for College. We've always been OnPoint for College. But the moment that I became the executive director, someone said to me, "Sam, how are you doing?" And I said, "I'm just keeping it on point." Like, where did that come from? And it just like, wow, but it sounds corny, good corny, and so it's just become a thing, and now I say it so much, and I think it's just a really good marketing tool. Every year I go to Albany and I testify before the higher ed committee to try to get money from the state, and this was the first year that I testified in the last 5 or 6 I've testified in, where I had assembly people and senators on that panel saying, "Keep it on point." So the branding is going statewide.
Yeah, it's good marketing.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah. We'll see how it turns out in dollars.
Through your journey as an employee to where you are today, it's not easy making those jumps in positions with different powers or different roles and responsibilities. As a small company for 325, that's one of the biggest growing pains that we have is someone comes in that wants to do video and we're like, great. Now you've been here for a couple of years, you know what we're doing. Now we got to get you to a managerial role. And that's really tough. But it is like where you need to go if you're trying to build a career. What advice would you have for someone who is kind of in that spot or growing into a career or pushing themselves to go to that next level? You have any advice for that person?
So what I've done at OnPoint is I've tried to do baby steps. We have staff that are in our leadership team now. We have directors that came in as advisors. And from advisors, I created a position called lead advisors. So you're an advisor, now you're a lead advisor. So you're leading the rest of them. And then for some, I created a position as a coordinator. So you don't have to really go to the director level yet, you're a coordinator. And then from lead advisors and coordinators to directors. But understanding at each level, you have to give something up. And you have to add something too. So there's things that you love to do that you're not going to be able to do anymore. Not as much as you used to, maybe a little bit, like I can drive a student now and then, but I don't get to sit down and do FAFSAs anymore. But there's things that you're going to have to give up. Then there's things you're going to have to add that you may not like so much, but they've got to be done. You've got to get them done. So you've got to read a lot of reports. You've got to read a lot of grants. You've got, if that's not your thing, but it's something that you got to do. So there are things that, as you're growing in a position, as you're moving to the next level, that, what are the things that I've got to stop doing? And that's the hard part. I mean, I think Jenny actually moved my office so I would stop talking to students. She'd like, get over here, because I get caught up talking to them. But making those tough moves. And I think as a leader, being able to see and give people the opportunity for growth. And then understanding that some of the growth that you're doing is not for you. We bring advisors into OnPoint and we're teaching them admissions work. We're teaching them financial aid work. We're teaching them advising work. We're teaching them a little bit of counseling work. And we're preparing you to be able to really in 3 years, 4 years, go work at any college in this country. And you don't have to do all those jobs. You can just do one of them. You can go work in an admissions office or a financial aid office or an advising office. And so understanding that, the work that you're doing is really to prepare people. And the students we're absolutely working with, but your staff, you're preparing them for the next level in their life and helping them to understand this is why we're doing this way, because this is what you have to be able to do. I know someone said to me, it was a new employee, said, "You're okay with people leaving here in 3 or 4 years?" I said, absolutely. I want to help people to be able to build their skills so they can grow their lives. And besides that, if they go to another college, that's another friend we got at that college that can help us out. So it's a win-win for the organization. And it's a win-win for people if you're helping them to grow their skill set.
Yeah, that's a great mindset. we talk a lot about retention and retainment. I do a lot of HR videos and like the pain that it takes to lose a team member and then have to retrain someone new. And it's such a long process, and there's a lot of essentially dollars that equate to that. Do you have any advice to other nonprofits when they're thinking about retaining team members and how to, just keep everyone just happy when they're, sometimes it's not always rainbows and sunshine. Like, it is a tougher position.
Yeah, I mean, creating opportunity, that would be the first thing that comes to mind for me is again, that's, our lead advisor didn't exist before. Coordinator positions didn't exist before. So you create opportunity for individuals if you're trying to retain them, trying to keep them. And in any business, either you're growing or you're dying. So as an organization, as you continue to grow, so OnPoint, for example, we have this director of access, and we have this director for success, and we have this director for career services. And wow, we have this other person who's really great too. We need them to be a director. You know what? We're in the rural community, so you'll be a director of working with students in the rural community. You create opportunity for individuals in the organization to continue to grow and build their skill set and bring other individuals along. And then you continue to try to expand the work that you do. I mean, OnPoint is specifically about post-secondary opportunities, but we expand our work. Like, I'm really into this literacy thing right now, and it's like, we may have something, tied in, onto OnPoint that has something to do with literacy, because that's a crucial thing for us to be able to work with our young people.
There's so much I want to talk to you about, Sam, but in the sake of being a little bit brief here, I want to jump ship to one last topic that I know you're passionate about, which is RISE. You want to talk about what RISE is, and then we can kind of go into it.
Yeah, Project RISE. I had a great relationship with the commissioner when she was Secretary of State for New York State. We had a great working relationship. She supported our program for about 5 years while she was in that position. When she became the commissioner, she came to Syracuse and she said, "Hey, we're doing this gun violence program. Sam, are you going to be at the meeting?" So I show up at the meeting, and everybody at the meeting I know, because OnPoint works with all of these organizations in some way, shape, form, or fashion. The estate decides that they have $2 million, and they want to divide it up amongst 4 lead organizations, $500,000 each. And each one of those organizations are supposed to take $125,000 or 25% of that and funnel it down to other grassroots organizations. I said, well, OnPoint doesn't really do gun violence like that, so I don't got to worry about that. That's not for us. And said, oh no, we need you to be in this. Like, okay, so I'm part of the organization, and it's really about how do we reach 13 to 17-year-olds and provide programming and start working with them to reduce the gun violence in this community. So that's what the funding is about. So what I agreed to do in the process is they needed someone to coordinate the 3 or 4 organizations that were going to be in it. I said, okay, so what OnPoint would do is if you want me to be a part of this, we'll hire the coordinator with the funds you give us, and then we'll have that coordinator funnel the money to 3 grassroots organizations. So out of the $500,000, we're just going to take $50,000, and the other $450,000 gets to go for what it should be used for, which is to reduce gun violence in our community. And so we were able to do that. We hired Yolanda Seegers. She's the coordinator, and she's doing a terrific job. And we have 3 grassroots organizations under us that are doing some mental health work, some conflict resolution work, and some entrepreneurial work. So those 3 organizations are doing that. And then she's coordinating with the other 3 organizations, which are Good Life, CCA, and Hillside. And they also have grassroots organizations under them. So it's a collective of all 4 of the lead organizations and about 3, 6, 8, 10, I believe 10 grassroots organizations that are going to be working in the community to get young people, like I said, 13 to 17, to come into programming, to do some entrepreneurial stuff, deal with their mental health, conflict resolution, and then some of the other programs, I'm not familiar with them as much, because part of what I wanted to do was keep Project RISE in their own space and not mix it with OnPoint. So I purposely tried not to know too much about what Yolanda's doing. Like, yep, come in, tell me, I got you, and it's really allowing her to build her skill set. as a leader in the community and doing this kind of work.
Is there a gun problem in Syracuse?
Yeah, there is shots fired. And the thing for me is, like, I've lived in Syracuse my whole life. I'm 32 and a half for the second time. Some people say 65. And I live in the house that I grew up in. My wife and I bought it from my parents back in 2008, I think. We purchased it from my parents over on Wood Ave. So I live in the area where some of this, some of the gun violence takes place. And so there's shots fired that you never make the news or no one ever talks about, but we can hear sometime. So yeah, we absolutely have a gun problem. We have a gun violence problem. The numbers have been down a little bit, and that's a positive thing, that maybe some of the stuff that we're starting to implement might be working some, but having young people who, and this goes back to the literacy part for me, you have young people who don't have the vocabulary to express their feelings. They don't have the words for their emotions, and they're frustrated with the system. They're frustrated with everything around them, and the only thing they know to do is react. And so they react with guns. They react with violence. And until we can get to a place where we're teaching them more words so they can use their words, teaching them conflict resolution, dealing with their mental health issues, dealing with our mental health issues, dealing with the trauma that's in our life, until we start addressing some of those things, gun violence can't be slowed down. And so there's absolutely a problem, and we have to admit that first, and then we go out and try to resolve that problem with organizations and groups and people who are in that field.
Yeah. And I think, like you said, it goes back to education, literacy, and everything that's going on.
Yeah. I think the literacy is the root. If you address education and you have more educated people, they're not taking those steps. They're not moving in those directions. When I didn't know better, I didn't do better. But when I learned more and when I knew better, then I did better. And we have so many people that don't know better, and we got to address that. We can't just say, "Oh, well, they're lost." No, we can save them. We can help save them. And we can help them save themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we finish every podcast up with 3 questions. I think some of these questions actually might relate to what we're talking about maybe here. So I want to start off with, do you have a favorite book and that you either want to recommend, or just a book that you like, and why?
Well, the autobiography of Malcolm X. I read that in my journey in life when I was incarcerated, and that can be another podcast. But I read that book, and I saw Malcolm X's transition in life. I saw, the book tells you how he moved through life, and you see this individual and all the trauma and all the struggles and all the things, and then you see him come out to be this totally different person, and this, knowledgeable, educated, and transforming. And so that was a book that I read that really transformed me. What I would recommend right now that everybody read is Punish for Dreaming, Batiste Love. That book, I just spent the weekend listening to it, driving back and forth to Albany, and it's powerful. It really speaks to this education system that we have and how it's designed and what it's done to people. Punish for Dreaming, Batiste Love. Read that book.
You've been doing what you've been doing for quite some time here.
Keeping it on point.
Keeping it on point. What keeps you passionate?
Wow. I think, for me, the thing that moves me most is that we are in a place where we can change lives. We can impact people's lives. We can make a difference. And I see the results of that every day when I look at the Syracuse City School Board and I see Tamika Barnett, and I say, wow, I used to drive her to St. Bonaventure, for her summer EOP program. And here she is, this fabulous young lady who is just knocking everything out of the park. And it was worth it. And when I look at the Common Council and I see Chol, I see Amir, and I say, those OnPoint alum, that we used to help get through college, and now they're in the community and they're doing things. And so seeing those kinds of individuals, I look at Eddie and the work that he's doing with Teen Angels. I say, that's what OnPoint means to this community. Is it helps people who are giving that. And we have so many entrepreneurs out there. I know I can't name them all, but we have so many that are doing, that are firefighters, that are police officers, that are doing great work in this community. And that's the part that keeps my passion, keeps my drive, and keeps my hope alive.
What excites you most about Central New York right now?
Opportunity. There is so much opportunity here for us to grow. Like I said earlier, when it comes to literacy, we're at the bottom. When it comes to poverty, we're at the bottom. When it comes to housing, we have so much opportunity to change the condition of our community. And we need people to come in and volunteer. We need people to support the nonprofits in this community. If you like OnPoint, come support OnPoint. If you like United Way, support United Way. Whatever thing you like, support it. But we need people to come off the sideline and get involved, because there is so much opportunity in Syracuse to grow and change the condition of this community. That's exciting for me, that I got work to do, and there's plenty of it, and we can make it happen. We can get it done.
Love that. Sam, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. I hope I said something that helped somebody along the way.
If you want to learn more about Sam, you can follow him on LinkedIn at Sam Rouser, and we very much encourage you to learn more about OnPoint for College at onpointforcollege.org. And be sure to follow In the Studio with 325 Productions for more conversations with extraordinary people every Monday. Thanks, Sam.
You're welcome. And remember, at the end of the day, we always keep it on point.